Okay, we're back, and our guest today is Robert Cantrall. He's author of a book called The Fall of My Life. Boy, what an interesting background. Worked in the financial services industry for over 15 years, anywhere from a startup company all the way up to a Fortune 500 company. Here's a part of his life that's been interesting. He's been fired 9 times. Well, now there's something to put on your resume. He is a native of Oregon, so one of these days he'll find his way back, but right now he's in Seattle. So, Robert, nice to have you. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, thanks.
Hey, nice to see you. Well, interesting book to say the least. How did you go from success to bankruptcy?
Well, my story starts with the Great Recession of 2008, and I was employed at Washington Mutual Bank that failed that fall. Thus, one of the reasons for the word fall of my life. And when I lost my job, I shortly thereafter went through a divorce and a foreclosure of the home and repossession of a boat and a house. And all of my what would have been retirement funds were also tied up in WAMU stock. So I literally lost everything materially, monetarily.
Were you depressed?
I wouldn't say I was depressed, but I would say I was scared.
Were you ever angry?
No, I was not angry.
Just scared. And how did you overcome it?
So, you know, it was really kind of a step-by-step process that I went through, and that's why I wrote the book. I felt that particularly in this time in history, the events that happened in my life probably happened to 10 million different people, at least one of them, if not all of them. Mm-hmm. And, you know, as you mentioned, I had lost my job 9 other times. I wasn't actually fired 9 times, but I've been through restructuring, outsourcing, and companies going bankrupt. And so it was nothing new to me. And I thought, well, this is no problem. I'll just go get another job like I've always done before. And in every other case, I wound up with a better job as a result. So initially, I didn't see it as a big issue, but I discovered very quickly that the job market that fall was significantly different than it had ever been before. And in particularly in my field, with WAMU going out of business, we dumped about 200 people that were my level and skill set into the job market all at the same time. So all 200 of us were applying for every job that came open. Wow. Incredibly competitive. And so I realized through the help of some career coaches and life coaches that I was going to have to do some things differently than I had done before in my job search. And that's what started the whole journey. One of the first things they asked me to do was networking, and I was scared to death of networking, and it had very negative connotations of multi-level sales, and you know, and so I just kind of had to face that fear and do it anyway. And I read used a lot of resources, read a lot of books to help me do that. And as I was doing that, I dug more and more into my life, and I wound up looking at some what I call misperceptions about my past, my childhood, a lot of past events in my life, and I reevaluated those, looked at them a different way so that they weren't holding me back from moving forward. And again, the fear is just a huge thing, I think, particularly for unemployed, even for there's a lot of, you know, we talk a lot about unemployment, but there's a lot of people that are underemployed or just unhappily employed, and they continue to work out of fear. And so working through those fears popped me out at the other end, where I came to this point of, in personal lives, I had lived up to that point with this idea of, if you liked me, I liked you. That's all it took to and you know, I learned that I can now walk into a room and I can decide whether I like you. And that's the same in the job. There was actually a point where I quit applying for jobs, and I sat down and I decided what kind of job I wanted, my dream job. And then I went after it. I created a network. I created a way of of talking with people, having informational interviews with them. And that, over the course of about, I was unemployed for 2 years. So over the course of about a year, when I finally got to that point that I was doing that, I created a job for myself. And
what was that job?
That job was back in a bank, and it was working. The most important thing for me in this ideal job that I created in my mind was a culture and a boss that had the ideals that I had, the ethics, the morals that I had. And she had built a team that shared all of those. So it was a wonderful, very productive, powerful team that we all worked together in, and it was just a wonderful experience.
What was the fear?
Oh, well, fear, you know, when you think about facing networking, going to a room of, literally at that point in time in Seattle, you could go to an event that had easily 300 people all looking for work. So, you know, your fears are, oh my God, are they going to like me? You know, am I going to look stupid? All those typical fears that we have in personal interactions.
Wow. All right. So what would you say to somebody that is struggling? I mean, you know, I think you mentioned it earlier. We have the unemployed. We have those who have given up and even looking. And another term that you said there, the unhappy employed, excuse me.
Yeah.
The economy seems to be coming back. We don't know if it's a house of cards, but it does show some signs of improvement. What do you say to those who are caught in the middle of this?
Yeah, and you know, I would add, I do believe it's a house of cards. I don't believe that we've recovered to the extent that a lot of people would lead us to be. So, you know, I think one of the most significant things that I came to understand, particularly as a believer, is that I am not what I make, where I work, what car I drive, you know, what material possessions I have. That is not who makes up Bob. What I am is a perfect child in the image of God. And if I can remember that, and if I can concentrate on that in all my daily interactions, whether it's with my wife or my children or my boss or a networking event or when I'm interviewing for a job, if I can remember that that's who I am, that's the core of who I am, then I'm not all tied up in all those other fears.
Some would say that God abandoned you. You would maybe say, God, you found him.
Well, actually, I would say neither. I never believed in this journey, you know, the typical why me, or where did God go, or where's the sin in my life that has caused this. I never bought into that. I've always believed very firmly in the verse in Jeremiah that, you know, God's plans for us are for good, not for bad. And you know, so I think the more important question in a situation like that to ask is not why, but what. What can I learn? So, you know, it's my opinion that God did me a favor. That this was actually an experience that if I had not gone through, I'd still be stuck where I was. Mm-hmm. And, you know, now I have, not only do I have a better life, I have a story I can share with other people that are stuck where I was stuck. And hopefully it gives them the tools or the, you know, the enthusiasm to try to move forward.
So what do you want people to take away from your book, Bob?
Well, there's one primary thing I want people to take away is that, you know, I'm not an expert in really anything. I'm just a regular Joe who went through an experience, and I had a handful of close friends who walked through that experience with me, who encouraged me to write about it and share my story. And so the important message there is that we tend to look at stories like this and think, wow, that's really an extraordinary guy, you know, and I just don't believe there are extraordinary people, and I don't believe I'm one of them. I think there are people who do extraordinary things in extraordinary circumstances. And basically the message is, if I did it, you can do it. And so don't be afraid of it.
Did you say earlier that in the midst of all of this, you went through a divorce?
I did.
How'd you handle that?
It was tough, along with everything else. The fact that all of this happened within literally a 9-month period was a lot to take in and a lot to process.
Wow.
And of course, about that, I have to ask myself the same question that I had to ask about the unemployment, and that's not, why me, but what can I learn from this?
Well, I can't help but think your book is, I've always said, whatever God has saved you from or brought you through, you end up turning around being a minister too, and you're certainly the case with your book. It would seem to me, it's called The Fall of My Life, and I would encourage you to check it out. There's a picture of it there on the television screen, those watching on TV today. You may want to check it out at the bookstores, Barnes & Noble online, and Amazon, and get a copy of this. And I think you'll find it to be a real resource. Maybe you're struggling. And, these unemployment numbers and everything we're seeing out there right now, Bob, it's phony. And there's a lot of people who are in the condition that you just went through.
You're absolutely right. And my heart goes out to you. I hope you pick up the book.
Okay. Thanks, my friend. God bless you, and stay in touch.
Thanks for having me.
All right, see you later. All right, the book is entitled, again, The Fall of My Life. You may want to check that out. And Robert Cantrall, and there's a picture of it there on the screen if you want to check it out at the bookstores. All right, let me just also say in our closing moments today, again, thank you for the many of you who helped us at the year end. I finally got a recap of everything. We've been busy, as you can imagine, as everybody else is. And we met our goal, the year-end goal, to raise $75,000 to help us with the very beginning project of the Dove's new building. And that is needed to help us with permits. We do have some architectural work that has to be done. There are some structural engineering issues that have to be done. There's actually some surveying that has to be done and things like that. And thank you. Many of you went above and beyond to help us, and we are deeply touched by your commitment to this ministry. Thank you so very, very much. And to all of you who support us month in and month out, I can't tell you, that's the lifeline of what we do. And we here at the Dove just want to say thank you. We're very excited about what's ahead, and we'll give you some reports in the very near future as the building now it starts to get lined out to get renovated for our use. And at the end of the day, the building's a tool to do more in what God's called us to do, to reach people with His Word and with His love and grace and encouragement. So thank you so very, very much for helping us and continuing to help us month in and month out. We'll talk to you next time on Focus Today.